All right, everyone, welcome back to the DrunkFriend podcast. This is episode 31, and Alex, how you doing? How you doing out there today?
Doing okay. So far, so good. But there's still a few hours left in the day, so you never know when things could turn sour. But I'm I'm cautiously optimistic. How are you doing?
That is the spirit. I don't know why I brought this show in as if I was welcoming you onto a game show. I'm sorry about that. But
Thank you, Bob Eubank.
I usually feel like I have something to lead in with, but I was like, how are you doing? I had no idea. I snuck up on myself. I had no idea what I was doing. But no, I took some days off work here this week to catch the channel up. I was almost within 3 weeks of my queue of videos, and I was getting the itch. I was like, ugh, I don't know about that. So I went ahead and made a couple over the past couple days to stretch it out past Thanksgiving, so I can relax a little bit, focus on my podcasting a little bit more, maybe have a better intro from here on out.
That's quite the achievement, to be more than a month ahead of schedule, and that's very hard to do. But your video that came out just today, when we're recording on Wednesday here, is for Gremlins 2, the new batch, a movie that I enjoy that movie quite a bit. It's very odd, goofy. It's the tone of the movie is all over the place. Sometimes it's horror, sometimes it's comedy. It's really a fun time. I like it. But what did you think of the game?
Yeah, and to speak more on the movie, I'm a huge fan of those movies. And I don't know of many people that say that they don't like them. And if they do, I feel like they don't get it because it is supposed to be more funny than scary. But I will say, though, and I mentioned this in the video, those Gremlins when I was a kid kind of spooked me out.
Oh, yeah, especially in the first movie. The gremlin in the microwave, it scared the crap out of me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, pretty scary imagery there back in the old 80s. But I didn't even realize this because I'm time has passed, but I didn't realize those two movies released so far apart. They were 5 years apart. I thought they were bang bang right there in the 80s, but there was a big gap, and when Gremlins 2 came out, people were like, why? People didn't really weren't really excited about it. They're like, well, didn't think that needed to be made, but it turned out good. And the game is all right. It's a Sunsoft game. The music, I didn't really spend a lot of time talking about the music of the game, but it is great. I really love the music to it. Sunsoft does great stuff with the music. Of course. But yeah, it's pretty fun for what it is. I mean, some of that NES jank and some occasional difficulty spike will get you, but overall pretty solid.
I mean, yeah, it's a game that I'm not even sure I knew this one existed, but really? I was kind of happy to see it. I guess I should have figured that it did. It's got that wonky top-down platforming, which I'm not always a fan of. Jumping on moving platforms where you got to trust your shadow underneath you, and I don't always like that, but otherwise it looks like a decent game.
Yeah, I mean, it will bail you out, though. You get this one use of a balloon, so it kind of knows it's like people are going to hate this platforming shit. Why are we doing this? So they went ahead and added this balloon, so if you fall, you get one per level. The balloon picks you up and kind of, gives you a few seconds of forwarding yourself through the level to land again, so you can kind of skip past some parts if you need to, and that's just built into the game. It's not really a cheat or anything. It's just like too bad. Here, let's go for a ride.
Yeah,
bail you out of some situations.
That's like Do Re Mi Fantasylands for Super Famicom. That has the same sort of thing where it's a power up in that game where it really kind of guides you along. Where it's like, oh, don't worry about it. You might have missed this jump, just don't miss the next one, and it floats you all the way up to the top of the screen. Kind of cool.
Gotta love it. But you, on the other hand, I've talked about this in the past. My favorite band growing up, for some reason, from the time I was 4 years old, I loved Aerosmith, which is a weird thing for a kid. It might have affected me in some deep-rooted ways I've not even discovered yet. But you did the video on Revolution X, which was a game I was so stoked for as a kid, and your video agreed with me in that it's not good at home.
No. It's not. The thing is that I was going into, get footage for that game. I was expecting the arcade to be crappy. It's not. It's totally fine. It's it's pretty much the same thing as the Terminator 2 arcade game, only with just these wacky, colorful settings. With like the guys from Aerosmith are here. What? But yeah, it's actually a pretty fun arcade playthrough. It'll kill 15-20 minutes for you, and it's some cabinets support 3 players, and if you can get that mess to work on MAME or on your hacked PlayStation Classic or whatever Raspberry Pi thing you're doing, and all the better. But yeah, no, the home ports. I only looked at the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis because that's really all I could stomach. The Super Nintendo one is bad. But at least it has like 5-second samples from songs in Aerosmith, which is a nice touch. The Genesis one tries to replicate the Aerosmith songs and all sorts of other stuff with its like, FM synth, and it's not working. It's not working. But the Genesis game was a shade better, I would say, just because anytime you've got more screen real estate, with a game like that, with gameplay like that, where you've got more screen to work with, it's always going to turn out better. And there's no slowdown on the Genesis one. There's the Super Nintendo one does have plenty of slowdown, which is
it does what Nintendo don't,
It's
there is a Saturn version, and I actually think I own it. And I know you didn't cover that one, but I have to think it's got to be a little bit better. I feel like a lot of Saturn arcade ports were pretty decent, so maybe I'll check that one out and see if it's any better.
I did see footage for it, and it didn't look as good as I would have thought, but that's just from looking at it. I don't have the best setup for Saturn.
The biggest bummer is that it doesn't use the accessories. That would help it out so much if it used a gun or a mouse or something.
Yeah, that's egregious. Apparently, it actually does work with the mouse. It just wasn't working for me because the fire button and the pause button are mixed up, and there's no way to kind of disassociate them. So it's just a clusterfuck. It's a disaster. But apparently, it's supposed to work with the mouse, and I tried it, and it's like, this ain't working. But yeah. Anyway, on to more pleasant subjects. I want to talk about something I'm way more excited about, which is NES ROM hacks.
Yes.
And that's a video I've got coming out on Thursday. I piled a lot of stuff into this just because I love the NES ROM hack scene. Is really it's got so much good stuff. Going back like 15 years now, with stuff like Mario Adventure, which is so good. It's so well put together. It's such a polished game. Castlevania Holy Relics, just really, it feels like it's got that polish to it that really makes it a fun standalone game. Like, even if you don't dig Castlevania that much, you're still going to dig stuff like Holy Relics. But then on top of that, if you are a Castlevania fanatic, there's stuff like Blood Moon, which I am horrible at that game. It just does not agree with me. I don't like the moving whip. Like, you keep walking forward as you whip instead of stop. Not a fan of that mechanic, but some people dig it, especially folks that are into speed runs and all that sort of stuff. But But there's also Chorus of Mystery, or is it Chorus of Mysteries? Yeah, that's a really tough one too. There's all sorts of stuff out there. It's there's even a ROM hack of stuff like Gimmick 2.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest. The level design's pretty jank, but there's even DuckTales 2 ROM hack called New Journey. That one's fun. I mean, for a little bit. It's just fun to be in that DuckTales NES universe, really, just in different settings. But
I mean, bouncing around is so addictive, that mechanic. Even in the first one, you just why walk? Why did they even have a walk animation?
Yeah,
and I want to bounce constantly.
I got to give kudos to you because you listed DuckTales 2 instead of DuckTales on your top 13 a couple episodes ago, and you're totally right. Because this made me go back and play DuckTales 2, and it's like, holy crap, this game is awesome. Like, this is so much better than the first one. And I get why people like the first one, because it came first. But DuckTales 2 is a much better game. Like, it's got more functionality, it's got more stuff, a lot more hidden stuff. It's all... you can't walk 3 feet without, finding a hidden area somewhere or finding a hidden chest that you just happen to bump into or something like that. So yeah, DuckTales 2, go play it.
Heck yeah, man. I really like, your ROM hack videos are some of my favorite stuff because I'm not big into the ROM hack scene, and you're my window to that. You do such a good job of curating the cream of the crop in your videos, and I feel like a lot of it too is that I think we have a lot of the same interest in games, and I think that's you're focusing on the ROM hacks that most people would want to try the main franchises as the base, your Marios and Metroids and stuff like that. But as you go further with your part 2s and part 3s, I'm sure there'll be some really interesting stuff pop out there. Like for instance, already in this one, I was surprised to see a Jackal 2. I was like, what? That's cool. Too bad it's hard, but that's still awesome. So I love stuff like that. It's like an alternate universe of NES stuff that's unconquered for me, and it's like a new frontier. So I love it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. An parallel universe, alternate universe NES,
Yeah.
where the fans have the say, and the fans put out the content, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but most of it is good.
Right on, man.
I should say most of the ones in the video are good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, maybe you could do a NES like shit hacks and just show all the bad ones. All right, so let's get to some emails. We have one here from Rudy who says, "Hi, Trav and Alex. Hello. As usual, loved your latest podcast. Glad to see Alex back on YouTube after his self-imposed hiatus. Some questions. Are you interested in the next-gen consoles coming out? And, if so, were you successful in pre-ordering one? Also, just curious how Metroid Samus Returns is going for Alex. Did you finish it? Like to hear your thoughts on the game and its place in the Metroid library. Keep up the good work and hope you read my email." Well, we did. Rudy.
Are you getting an X Series, S Series, or PS5? Those on your radar at all?
No, I thought he was talking about the analog.
Oh.
I'm kidding. No, I'm joking. But if I were to get something new, I would probably prefer one of the analog things personally. But
sure.
No,
yeah.
I'm not crazy. I don't have the fever for the next gen or the new gen stuff or whatever you want to call it these days. I have so much to play, and I just there's doesn't seem like there's any, what do they call it, no killer apps. There's no like big time game that's going to come out with them that makes me want to purchase it. I know for some people there are, but for me I don't see that there, and I don't know. I'm not as excited about it. What I did do though, and this is something that I talk about a little bit more on my other podcast, but my buddy Brian and I, we used to share custody of a PS4. And so we bought one, we split it, and then it would just go back and forth whenever a game would come out we wanted to play, and I'd give it to him, he'd play it, and then he'd give it back to me. We shared a PSN account. And what I did was, since he wants one of the new Xboxes, I just bought the PS4 from him. So now I have a whole new backlog of PS4 stuff I want to get to, like Death Stranding I've not played, and Ghost of Tsushima I've not played, The New Last of Us. So I have my work cut out for me. So I'm more excited about getting a PS4 than any of these next-gen things.
Yeah,
what about you?
We're perpetually behind. That's the life of being in the retro scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pearl. My girlfriend Pearl is going to get a PS5, but we don't. I try and nag about pre-ordering, and that's how it's not good, and don't do that, and tisk and all that sort of stuff, because it gives companies the green light to put out shitty products before they're ready and that sort of thing. I don't want to get on my soapbox or anything like that, but
sounds like you got on it there for a minute.
No pre-ordering for us, but we'll get it once it's out and it's available. The PS5 in particular, I've never owned an X anything. I don't even like X-Pac the wrestler. No, that's not true. I think he's okay. But
I like him as 1-2-3 Kid as well.
Yeah, well, 1-2-3 Kid or 6 when he was in WCW.
Oh yeah, when you did the math. Yeah.
Amazing. I just figured that out right now. No. Yeah, no, PS5 for us. As far as the Metroid Samus Returns, I actually got sidetracked because I got sucked into Mario 3D Land. And I've just been having a blast playing that and collecting star coins. I've got every single. I finished the game. It's a pretty easy game, even by Mario standards. But once you get the special worlds on the other side of the game ending, that's when it gets fun and it gets challenging. And I've got everything unlocked except for the very last level. 8-8, and I think you need 290 star coins. I think I've got like 285 at this point.
So wow, closing in.
I still have to go back and find 5 more coins. I just really like that game. I like it. It does 3D platforming so well, where the camera is kind of on rails and it follows you and kind of nudges you along as to where to go, instead of just like you control the camera to how you want it. It's like, no, I don't like that. But I think it's a really well done game. I will say that I did put like 6 or 7 hours into Metroid Samus Returns. I think it's fantastic. I like it. I already like it better than Metroid Fusion. I thought that game was a little too hand-holdy. I know that sounds kind of snobby, but I like games where it's like, here you go do whatever, and you know there is a method that you got to follow, but you got to figure out what it is. And right. I enjoy that. I enjoy that about Samus Returns. I love all the power-ups. I love like the sticky ball that allows you to explore even more stuff and like crawl on the ceiling and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that so far. But I'm only about 6 hours in. I'm going to go back to it after I've unlocked this last Mario world, so to speak.
Cool. Well, sounds like you're enjoying it, and that's always good.
Yeah, you were asking me like, what are you doing, like a completist thing? I was like, no, I just like I'm just really enjoying the hell out of this game. Then we got another email here from Cross, who says, "Dear Drunk Friends, what's your least favorite Nintendo console, and why is it the N64? Cheers, Cross."
Wow, Cross. That's
sounding cross.
Very cross.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed. Man, I have a really giant soft spot for the N64. Actually, I get why people. I mean, the controller is. It feels like you're holding the face of an elephant. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And I get the fog, and it doesn't hold up in a lot of ways. But I still like it. I have 254, I think, N64 games on the shelf. Building that collection, it's fun to collect for. But also, there's some games on there that are fun. You've shown a few here lately, even with Forsaken and Pilot Wings 64. I wasn't aware that held up as well as you indicated that it did. So I don't know, man. I cannot say it's my least favorite. I'd have to be pretty predictable and say something like the Virtual Boy would probably be my least favorite console, just because it has to be.
Well, technically that's handheld.
Oh, but what if you have the stand and you don't use your hands?
Then you just look like an idiot. But
that's true.
It is technically handheld, which is a pretty.
Would you call the Switch a console? I guess it can go both ways, huh?
I suppose so. Yeah, I would call it a console. Yeah.
Interesting. You're being pedantic, and I enjoy it.
Oh, I'm just being difficult.
So what would yours be?
Oh, it's
to
the
get
N64.
the heat off of me for a second.
Not even close. Yeah.
Not even close, huh?
Yeah, it's light speed bad. No, I'm just kidding. There are some games I like. I love Road Rash 64. It's brought me a lot of joy over the years. There are always big laughs with that game. Some of the wrestling games on there, like WCW NWO Revenge, and I know everybody raves about No Mercy, but I always preferred WrestleMania 2000 for my WWF game of choice. I had a lot of fun with that one. There's some games like Rush 2. We talked about this with Jason Heine, where the stunt course in Rush 2 is so ridiculous and weird and funny, and you're just driving around like flipping, 999 miles an hour, just going off these crazy jumps, and your car explodes for no reason. Like, that's fun. Like, I like screwing around on stuff like that. But as far as like the quote unquote classic games go, they've all been remade in a better way on other handhelds. I think with Ocarina of Time, was it DS or 3DS? I don't remember. But
that was on one of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah. And
I would think that go ahead, sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. I was just going to say, Mario 64 was probably better realized on DS, and you could go on down the line.
I think when I think about like least favorite and like in terms of I can't separate my nostalgia in terms of like favorite, but even in terms of like legacy, I think the Wii U is very similar in that regard, in that It's a very narrow library.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff got remade or put re-released onto the Switch. And I don't know. I see a lot of similarities when you look at legacy between those two consoles. But I think the N64, way more memories for me. I've put more time into it. Anyway, even though I'm a Wii U defender, big fan of the Wii U, but what are you gonna do? All right, so the N64, we're mixed. We're a mixed bag here, and that's all right.
No, it's not.
Okay,
we're gonna settle this.
I have a hard time. So I have a hard time with my N64 love. I have an N64 T-shirt, and around certain people, I'll put a hoodie over it. I'm like, I don't want.
You'll cross the street and walk on the other side because.
Yeah. I'll get a wedgie. They'll just leave me hanging from a locker with my shirt over my head. And I'm like, have you guys ever played Battle Tanks? Pretty fun. It's not bad. So it's. I know I toe a very difficult and very, I should have better opinions. I understand. Okay, we have a good guest coming up, though, and that's what we should be excited about. This positive guest who probably also hates the N64, but he's a pretty good guy. So coming up next, we have John Riggs, and he shouldn't be a stranger to any of you. If you have your finger on the pulse of retro gaming YouTube, you know who he is. He's been around for, honestly, not as long as I thought, only about 5 years on YouTube, but you've seen him in other videos like on Metal Jesus' channel. But he does, repairs, reviews, unboxings. He'll eat nasty cereal. He'll do just about anything. He's a fun guy. He's been to all the gaming conventions, and he was a great interview.
All right, and you're going to want to stick around for Riggs. Hey, everyone, and hey, John, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us here on the Drunk Friend podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time. But first things first, I have to ask you, on the scale of 1 to 10, how sick of you are people calling you Riggs, like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon?
Oh, my goodness. You know what's funny?
Riggs.
I'm from the generation. I'm class of '95, so I was there when the first movie came out. But I didn't watch any of the Lethal Weapon movies until the third one came out. So I got this. I got the reference all the time on the playground in elementary school, going through middle school. My friends, people I didn't even know, Riggs. I'll be like, hi, how are you? I didn't get it until I watched Lethal Weapon 3. I'm like, that's why they used to call me by not just my last name, because it is my last name, but that's why they called it, used that emphasis on it, I suppose. So
yeah. Was that the Rene Russo one?
I could have been. It's been such a long time since I've seen any of them.
I guess.
The third one had Joe Pesci in it, at least.
Oh, yeah. He was in 3 and 4, I think.
Right,
and 4
right.
was just a cluster bleep of
of
stuff. You can swear on here, by the way. I don't know why I said bleep. But, yeah. But,
yeah.
But, yeah, no. For those that don't know, John is obviously very, very prolific on YouTube. He's one of my favorite channels. And my favorite thing about your channel is it's like a one-stop shop for everything gaming related. It's got new games, old games. You got repairs. You got hacking. So was this? Was this your channel? Was this your idea from the beginning, or did you just fly by the seat of your pants and it's like, this would be good, this would be good? Like, how does that work for you?
It's not even my idea now. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing half the time. No, I just kind of go with the flow of whatever. It's a hobby of mine, first and foremost, and so it just started out with I just threw everything up on the wall to see what stuck, so to speak.
Sure.
So when I first started my channel, I was showing off things like the like speak and spells and stuff like that because I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. With my channel moving into the future, but it wasn't until later on when I was looking at the analytics, like some people do with YouTube do, and that's when I realized, oh, okay, more people are actually clicking on and watching video game stuff. So for the longest time, I just more used it as a placeholder for, hey, I made this new game hack. Here's what it looks like. Okay, there you go. And that was kind of just the way things were going. I just used it as a placeholder for, it was like, oh, hey, I heard you made this game hack. What does it look like? I just sent him the YouTube link or whatever. So it just keeps, that's like with anything. It just keeps evolving into, it was that for a while, and then when I wasn't really doing any game hacks for a while, I was like, well, I clean these, I go out hunting for video games and at yard sales and stuff like that. I always have to clean them when I get home. If they don't work, that's when I, have to pull out the soldering iron and maybe swap something around or put in an extra wire or whatever it is. So I was like, I do this all the time. I'll just hit record and see what happens. And then from there, that, trying to fix games, I never fix anything. I just clean them half the time. But that turned into the thing that people watch most. This throwaway video idea turned out to be the thing that people kind of knew me for and still know me for today, even though I don't do them nearly as often as I used to.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You talking about all the different things that you did, because I was going to point that out. I was going to say, man, you're all over the place. What you cover in your videos, like Alex pointed to, you do repairs, reviews of games, new hardware, old school and modern. You're a retro gamer at heart, but you throw some VR stuff on there every now and then.
I love the VR. Yeah, it's crazy. And if I had a focus, maybe I would have 1 million subscribers by now. But I don't have a focus because, again, it's a hobby of mine. It's everyone else is along for the ride if they like, and I can see the way things go. Not everyone likes VR stuff, especially on my channel. I mean, VR content probably gets the least amount of clicks, even more so than like new breakfast cereal, videos. So it's always hard to tell, what people are going to click on. But it's like, well, I mean, some people will just watch those and that's fine. And some people will subscribe and only watch, when I rank NES games or something. That's fine too. So just happy to still be around. And again, I mean, YouTube's free. Anybody can do it. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's what's so endearing about your channel is that it is you. It is not you trying to, I got to come up with more retro content, or I really got to go out of my way to make this certain type of video because that's what my channel is about. You just, you do whatever John Riggs wants to do, and I think that's what keeps it upbeat and fresh. But thinking about all those things that you've done, even like opening, sealed games, trying some really gross cereals just because they're Ninja Turtles or whatever.
Right.
What is the thing that is your favorite thing to do for the channel? What are your favorite types of videos that you do?
Well, I mean, I like doing the unboxing videos only because it gives me a chance to put my kids on camera also. As far as videos go and, watch all the other YouTube stuff that, nobody, unless you do YouTube videos, cares about. Those are fun because they're completely unpredictable. I never use a script. I just hit record and just go for it. And my kids like being on these videos. My kids have been on some of my other videos too in the past, but that kind of became a staple of, okay, cool, at least once a month we'll do this. And my kids like it because, when we were growing up, we wanted to be on the news. So we could call up Grandma and say, hey, Grandma, turn on the news. I'm going to be on TV. But my kids don't watch TV. My kids watch YouTube. So it gives them a chance to be part of this medium that, that they're into. And it gives them a chance to, be on the same thing along with, their favorite guys. They love Scott the Woz, they love Jacksepticeye, they love Beta 64, stuff like that. They watch a lot of the same channels I watch too. But it turns out fine for all of us. And I never know what it is. And then I just take that footage and say, okay, I'll try to edit this together and and my edits are always super simple anyway. But I mean, it gets the job done anyway.
Yeah, and I was going to ask how you made the news so often as a kid. Were you an arsonist or something, or?
Right. Yeah, maybe you're right. I can neither confirm nor deny.
No, I was going to say that sounds like the idea of having your kids on. That's something that they're going to be able to look back on fondly. Almost like Christmas videos and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
You get to share it with an audience, which is very cool. And you say you don't script anything. That's I think that's why I'm drawn to your channel so much, is because I script everything. Because otherwise I ramble, I stutter, I go off on tangents, I start talking about the 1991 Minnesota Twins or something like that. And whereas I have to have, like, I even script like the ums and uhs and stuff like that.
Wow.
I'm a lunatic when it comes to that sort of thing, because it helps me feel prepared.
Sure.
If you just, and it's part of the reason why I started this podcast with Trav, or wanted to, was it's like it gives me a chance to be unscripted. But with you, it's like, no, I don't want any of this to be scripted.
Right.
I'm just gonna fly. We're just gonna see what happens, and that's really cool.
Yeah, fly by the seat of your pants. It's what I've been doing. I'm a radio DJ by day two, so it's all I ever do. I just I know what I'm gonna say, or I know about what I'm gonna say, I should say. Sometimes I will have bullet points, and sometimes I'll do a video where it's like, oh, this thing like when I'll capture the footage first if I'm doing an old school retro, whatever it is, or whatever video I'm doing. Once I capture the footage, I was like, oh, cool, I got to mention this on that video, and of course I'll shoot it, film it, edit it, look at it, upload it and everything, and then later on I'll be like, I forgot to mention that one thing.
Yeah.
And I can put it in the comments, I guess, but then it's also like, it's too late. It's already in the past. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of benefits to scripting, and I can script too. I love to write. I love writing. It's just hard for me to write what I'm going to say as I'm going to say it, like how I would say it, I suppose. Where writing something like in a book form or writing something in a blog form, is different from the way I would actually say it out loud if I met you at a convention or something. So there's a lot of benefits to scripting. So there's no feel no shame in doing the script. It's just one of those things I can't do because that's not how I work best, I suppose.
Right on. Well, considering all the stuff that you do cover, it seems like your go-to is the NES. It seems like that's what you're always going back to.
Sure.
Why is that, and why do you hate the Super Nintendo?
I love Super Nintendo.
I'm just kidding. I'm
No,
just kidding.
you know, it was that was my favorite. It's my favorite system of all time. Again, I'm from the day, so it was. You know, I remember a time. You know, I grew up with the Atari 2600, and I remember when the Nintendo the Nintendo Entertainment System, I guess, the NES, first came out, and I thought it was super cool, and I played it for the very first time at a kiosk in our Yakima Mall in Yakima, Washington, where I'm from, and that was my first experience with the NES, and of course I didn't get one until, this was maybe 2 or 3 years later, and it was just I loved the Atari, I loved video games, I'd go to the arcade all the time, but when the Nintendo came out, that was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be known for, this is my thing, and I loved it, and it was kind of my biggest passion in video games at that time were these was Nintendo, and of course I got into the Genesis later, then the Super Nintendo, and even the TurboGrafx 16. I had one of those back in the day too.
Wow.
But it all started with the NES, and that was like my I'm the sixth of 7 kids growing up in a big old household, so that was my that was my escape. Was my like we all played musical instruments too. My parents were both musicians, so we had that going on for us. But it's like, okay, my brother's playing the drums, my 2 sisters are doing whatever, my other brother's doing something. It's like, okay, cool, I can play my Nintendo at the time. At the time I needed it most, and that was kind of my escape, and I loved it, and I still love it today too. Still play it regularly.
So if your parents tried to do a Partridge Family kind of thing, you're like, nope, I'm staying home playing Nintendo.
Yeah, I probably would have been okay with that, but my dad was always working. I mean, because he was a music teacher and he taught music lessons at a local music store.
Oh, nice.
Did all these things like that, and played for weddings and funerals and bar gigs back when bars had live bands on weekends. And my mom could play too, but she was also just the all-American mom who stayed home with the kids and helped, raise all of us while the dad was out, working. But, it was just one of those things that I grew up thinking everybody played a musical instrument. It wasn't until like I was in middle school where I was like, you didn't just choose one not at birth, but you didn't choose one when you're, when you're old enough to make a decision. I mean, I thought everyone did. It was weird.
At least you chose right with the Nintendo. Alex and I, of course, spar a little bit over the NES versus the Super NES. And we even had an episode a couple back where we listed our top 13 NES games of all time, according to us, of course. And so we got to ask you, what are some...
Sure.
Now, we know all the main Nintendo games. We know everyone likes the Metroids and the Zeldas and the Marios. But what would you say are some NES games that people that maybe don't know about, aren't as popular? I won't use the term hidden gems here, but
okay.
what are some that you really like that you think a lot of people overlook?
Spoken SEO, not saying hidden gems. I have a couple of videos on my channel about this, but I mean, the very first game I always think of is Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom, which not a whole lot of people know about. It's my most. There's a word for it. I forgot what that word is, but it's like my most passionate game of all time. It's not my favorite game of all time, but it's the one that holds a true memory for me. I do like the game a lot. It plays like Shadowgate. It's just Shadowgate for vegans, as I've said. It's a point and click adventure kind of game. But I love that one, and there's every once in a while somebody on Twitter or something will be like, oh hey, look, check it out, tag me in it. I picked up your favorite game. I was like, oh, I love it. Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. I mean, there's a ton of them out there. I mean, there's Fax Xanadu always comes to mind almost immediately. There's games like Ninja Crusader that never get enough love because everyone knows Ninja Gaiden and everyone knows the other ones too. But Ninja Crusader, it's not the best game of all time, but it's just one of those games that not a lot of people know about. There's so many of them. For some reason, I love
good
the
at
game.
naming ones that we didn't name, which I think is interesting.
I have a passion for the game Time Lord by Milton Bradley. And it's just such a weird game. It's not really weird, but it's a game where you go through time and have to collect these orbs, but the orbs you have to get them by doing different things. Like they're not like you might just see it sitting there, but when you move towards it, it flies out of the way. So you have to keep shooting at it so it doesn't move. And then another one is you have to do a certain thing and the orb will come down, and you just go through different time. To go through different time eras. It's kind of a weird game. It's one of those games that no one really talks about. But man, I love Time Lord, so that's another one.
Nice.
High on my list of maybe more of a guilty pleasure than a hidden gem.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's far too many of them. I could list them off. one by one. Be here all day for that.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you do a couple videos per week. How far in advance do you have ideas for your content, or are you just like we were talking about earlier? Are you just like oh, this sounds good, this sounds good, I'll do this, like it kind of in the moment?
Well, I recently I've been like ranking NES games based on the publisher. So it's like, hey, we're going to look at every game from Milton Bradley, for instance. We're going to look at every game from Vic Tokai is coming up. Every Nintendo game from SNK, stuff like that. And those type of videos I'll do usually about a month in advance. Like if I do one of those a week, I'll usually do those a month in advance, only because it takes time to capture all the footage, and then I do my part, and then I have to edit it all together, and that takes longer for editing for me, along with my full-time job, along with my part-time job, along with having 3 children of my own. That takes more time for me, but if I do it all at once, and just capture all the footage all at once, then do all my video part all at once, and then do all the editing all at once, which I can usually do in a Sunday afternoon, I suppose. I'll do those in advance, but for the most part, a lot of them, I'll just get like a product in the mail. He's like, hey, do you want to check out this product? I was like, sure, I'll talk about anything that's, kind of relatedly cool or whatever. And then as soon as I get it, I'll just do the video on it, just out of the box. And then it's like, oh, here it is, and let's check out this feature, let's check out that feature. I chop out all the stuff that sucks, and then I'll upload it. And so oftentimes I've had ideas for videos that are always kind of like in the back of my mind, but it's like I haven't really done them yet. But when time presents itself, it's like, oh, sure, I'll just I'll go for it. But yeah, for the most part, it's just whatever I happen to see, or whatever I happen to like somebody sent me a Nintendo Switch controller the other day. I was like, okay, cool, I can talk about that, and it gives me a chance to talk about some recent digital Switch games that I picked up recently. So I put all those in a video, and that'll be one I'll probably do. It actually might be posted by the time this is posted, but it's just something that I don't really have a whole lot of ideas in my back pocket. It's just whatever sounds cool at the moment. I was like, oh, cool, I could do a video on that really quick, and then I do it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Trav over here is scheduled through like Thanksgiving, I think he said.
Yeah,
Nice.
but
And
I'm a video a week guy. I'm not out here crushing it like you two. 2 a week? Are you kidding me? You guys are psychopaths.
Yeah, I mean, I tell myself 2 a week. Sometimes it's 3 a week, but I can do at least 2 a week, just because I know. I mean, there's sometimes it seems like I'm doing 1 a day if I can turn them around quickly. Because again, my video editing is super simple. For my day job, I record like local radio commercials all day, which is just I do my voice, add some music to it, chop out all the ums and ahs and breaths and stuff like that, and there you go. So my video editing is very similar, where it's just like it's super quick for me. I'm able to pump them out as quick as I can, and I like to give myself that buffer. I mean, like doing them and having videos ready to go in a month in advance, super smart, because if something comes up, your computer breaks, your family emergency or something like that, and you don't have. I mean, there's people I know that have 0 videos in the can, so to speak. So if something happens and something comes up and they're out of action, then that means that they're out of action until they make another video. Unless they go live on their phone or something like that, just to fill in the void, which I totally have done in the past. It's nice to have at least some in the future, especially if that's one of the best things about doing retro gaming YouTube videos is it's evergreen. It'll last forever. So whether you do it today,
Yes,
tomorrow,
that's right.
next week, next year, it's the same information. There's no new information. Unless it's like they discovered like a new prototype or something that hasn't been dumped yet or something like that.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
So there's a benefit to doing retro stuff. It's not getting all the hits that Switch games do or anything like that. But I'm also, people don't go to my channel. I love the Nintendo Switch. I love talking, and I'm a huge indie gamer. So most of my Switch content is all based on the indie games that are available for it, all the digital stuff. Anyone can talk about the Marios and, like you said, the Marios and the Zeldas and all that, and there's a benefit to that too. But again, that's not me. People come to my channel because maybe they want the stuff that no one else is talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, and,
Exactly.
And in talking about what you're doing, you kind of set up a good segue. I wanted to ask, you've been on YouTube around 5 years, I guess, at this point, it seems.
Right.
What would you go back and what is some advice you would go back and give yourself 5 years ago about getting into the YouTube game?
I mean, the advice 5 years ago could be my advice now, which is just, like have a focus and stick to it, and be consistent. When I first started, it's still a hobby to me, and I still treat it like a hobby. But when I first started, I would just do a video every once in a while. once a month, maybe every other week. Maybe sometimes a couple of times a week, maybe sometimes a couple of times in the same day, just whatever. Going back, I would have definitely had more of a battle plan for, like at least do one video, like one video once a week at the same time every week, and I would have started with that, and then went from there, just to build that consistency and that momentum.
Right.
Again, when I first started, I didn't really have a battle plan. When I first started, it's funny. I had a friend of mine, and he was my first friend that ever said, like, "Oh, I dropped cable. I just watch YouTube all the time." I'm like, "You watch YouTube for like what, shows?" I've never heard of that. I always use YouTube to look up old wrestling clips and Headbangers Ball MTV music videos. And, I didn't really use it for anything else. I didn't realize people were like making up their own shows in their basement or garage or whatever. But he did, and he was like, "Oh, dude, you gotta start a YouTube channel. People, retro's big. There's this angry video game nerd guy on there. You gotta do it, man. People are gonna love it." It's like, no, and I kept on putting him off, and he told me this back in like, good lord, he told me this back in 2007, 2008, somewhere like that. And he's like, "Dude, you gotta have a YouTube channel. People are gonna love it." I was like, I don't watch YouTube for that. It's not for me. But had I have, who knows where I'd be by now?
Right.
If I started back then, I still didn't even have a battle plan on even making a YouTube video until I started being on Metal Jesus channel, because we're friends anyway. He was the one who invited me on his channel, and it's funny, you watch back, not that you will, but if you look back on my first few videos with him, I never promoted my YouTube channel because I didn't have one at the time. I was like, I'll come on your channel. You do all the editing. I don't care. And he was the one. He was the one who was like, "Dude, you should have your own YouTube channel. You have all this other stuff going on. So I think people would like it." And I was like, "All right, well, if you think so, it's I'll set one up. We'll see how it goes."
Yeah,
Cool.
I thought that was interesting because I went to look back because I was like, man, I bet John's been around a while. He's been on Metal Jesus, and you just seem like a guy that's been around forever. I feel like for as long as I've been interested in YouTube and retro, I
just look like I've been around forever. Yeah.
It seems like it, but I was like, only 5 years ago? Like, I was going to ask if you purged like really old videos from your channel for some reason, but yeah, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's weird to say this now, but 5 years ago is kind of a young channel. But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can start whenever. There are some of the older videos that I have purged, like some of the older videos where I just didn't have the lighting, or it just looked weird. Like I have since deleted some of those videos and then remade them later. Like nothing recently, but like as of maybe it could have been like 3 years ago. I had some of the older videos where I was just like, you know what, I can do that video. Like I like that video, and I want to do that. I just don't want that to be the I just don't want that to be the video that people find. So there have been a few times where I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna like I love these Korean bootleg Famicom carts. So I'll delete the old ones and then just make new ones. So there was a couple of those, but yeah, no, I've been around since it's been November of 2014, I think. So I think it's coming up on 6 years here pretty soon. Now that I think about it, good lord.
Yeah, it's old enough to go to kindergarten at least.
That's right.
I wanted to ask in your repair vids. I really admire what you do because you're just trying whatever you say many times. Like, I'm not a professional. I'm not the be all end all and all this stuff. I'm just trying whatever and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Sure.
What would you say? You're obviously well schooled though with dealing with these old cartridges. What would you say is the most important thing that people should know in general when it comes to maintaining old games?
It's just cleaning them. That's all it is. I mean, so much of it is just, and cleaning it, just rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip is perfect. I know I use these 1-Up cards all the time. I always say that they're not sponsored or endorsed because they're not. They've never given me any money. In fact, I've given them a lot of money for using these 1-Up cards. They have gifted me, and I should say in full disclosure, they have gifted me some 1-Up cards in the past.
Nice.
But the which are fine. But anyway, just rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip, I think, works best for anything. Recent reports, they're definitely finding out that Brasso, which may work up front, may not be good for long term. I know I've never had a game not work because I've used Brasso on it, but I've also never used Brasso more than once on any of my older stuff anyway. And since then I've gone away from that too. But the other thing with YouTube as well, it's been great, at least for me, especially for me, is I'll do these repair videos, and I even post the ones where I don't get it working, because the people in the comments are way smarter than I'll ever be, because the people, and like you said, I say that too, it's like I don't have a technical background, I don't have an electronics engineering degree. Sometimes the people in the YouTube comments do. So they're the ones who maybe they don't have a YouTube video for whatever reason, but they're like, oh, you got to try this and you got to try that. And sometimes they're way more technical than I'll ever be. I was like, oh, you got to solder a wire to the A69 to the V2. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Man, I'm good with puzzles. I know how stuff works. Like when I make repros and stuff like that, I'm just like, that's when I started my repro videos, where it's just like all the documentation online was all built for someone. It's all tech based. And so I was like, I can't understand that at all. But I know how to make them. So I'll just do it in my own layman's terms and show you what I do along the way, and hopefully it works out pretty well. And so far it kind of has, or it did for a while anyway. But yeah,
I hear that, folks. Clean your carts. I'm sick of going to these used game shops and looking at the pins and just turning my head in disgust, holding back vomit. Like, come on, people, clean your carts, will you?
Yeah, there's some
clean the pins.
There's some cards that have been like water damaged and all that, and I mean I've never found any bugs yet. Not in cartridges. In consoles for sure. In consoles I have.
I was gonna ask if you had any horror stories, but I guess
nothing.
Not really.
Unfortunately, not nothing I can think of. Just outside of, I mean, sometimes water damage is just the worst, but it just looks really bad.
Have you heard any from like the people at Pink Gorilla or anything like that? What's the worst you've heard from there?
Well, definitely like the cockroaches, like bugs living inside. Oh. And again, that's mostly consoles, only because that's what gets heated up. The warmth of the system and everything. They find a nice place to be, and then unfortunately it kind of torches them, kind of cooks them. Jeez. So that's never a good look. I've never had any drugs found inside cartridges. Unfortunately, I've never had any any hidden random things. I mean, I found that some things that were kind of interesting, like it would be like an official like wiring job. Like if something didn't quite work, they would have to wire like an extra resistor or something between two pins on a ROM, but not done from like you or I, like done from the actual headquarters or something. So I was like, oh, I've never seen that before, but I guess it happens every once in a while or something. Somebody told me, so I'm going by what they're saying. I wish I had some better horror stories, but I mean, there have been times where there was one that it was corroded. I forgot what happened to it, but man, it was just like there was a layer of it may have, if I left it there for another 50 years, it could have turned into barnacles or something. I mean, it was really, really bad.
Oh my god.
But I did that live. We have our Portland Retro Gaming Expo every year, and I was like, you know what? The coordinators, the head guys, were just like, could you do a panel where you do that, like where you do the open cart surgery stuff? Because that's what people know you for, which was kind of true at the time. I was like, I could try doing it live and see what happens, but man, I mean, there's sometimes I don't get anything to work. And one of the games I had, I think it was like Home Alone 2 for the Super Nintendo, and it looked like that. Oof. But yeah, sure enough, I cleaned it off and it popped it in and it fired right up. So I was like, man, I'm glad it did.
That's some pressure right there. Dang.
It is. It took me. It was the panel was about an hour long, and it took me about half an hour before I got my first game working. But I just drove in with all my materials, and I had a couple of friends on the stage with me too to help me out too. Just to kind of hang out, and hard to take questions from the audience when I'm looking over my glasses to get a better view of the whatever I'm soldering into place or something like that. But the audience seemed to like it. I mean, I did the same thing too. Open Cart Surgery Live. I did that at the Missouri CameCon in St. Louis, Missouri, a couple years ago. The panel was like 45 minutes to an hour long, and I got exactly 0 games working, and I felt like the biggest chump ever. But again, the audience seemed to like it too. The audience was like, "Oh no, you're good. We're just hanging out because it's fun to watch." I was like, "Man, for you maybe, but being on my side of the table, not so much. Feeling the pressure anyway." But we made it work all the same.
Man, that's like a stand-up routine and like nobody laughing or something. That just seems like I almost started flop sweating when you were talking about that. Like that would be hard to endure. Yeah,
it's rough, but it's also I'm just some dude. I'm here all weekend, so.
It's also out of your control too. I mean, it's like those games could have been, who knows what had happened to them. It's not like you're,
oh sure,
getting the cream of the crop.
I was also under like the strict time constraint because someone else was coming up right after me too. And in my luck in Portland, it was probably like Ben Heck or someone who was like way better at anything I could ever do. I was like, I'll let Ben Heck take care of all this. It turned out all right. It was just it was more for fun. But after that one where I got 0 games working, I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna do that ever again. I'll go back to my go-to, which is to hack a video game live. And that usually works out pretty well because I get like audience suggestions of like, okay, Super Mario throws fireballs. What should he throw? A cat's head. Okay, we're gonna change the fireball to so he's throwing cat heads and he's on stilts. It's something new every time. It makes it pretty fun.
Oh, that's great.
And then usually, if time allows, usually at the end, then I'll put that onto a flashboard and actually give that away as like a contest prize. Where it's like, okay, you can actually play the game now, and and here you go on a physical card,
nice.
little souvenir anyway.
That's really interesting, and I was already going to ask you about conventions, so this is a good segue. And then, unfortunately, conventions not a thing here in 2020, but you do seem to go to quite a few, and I think I've spotted you at a couple because you're like 7 feet tall and you're usually dressed as usually cosplaying something. So, what are some of your favorite conventions? What are some of your favorite ones from the past, and what are some that you're most excited to get back to once we can?
Sure. I've loved every one of them that I've attended because they're all different. I'm from the Northwest, so I'm used to the Northwest conventions, which is nice. We average, or used to average, something about every month, maybe every other month, whether it be like the Seattle Retro Gaming, at least in the Northwest. So like the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo in summer, Portland Retro Gaming Expo in fall. There's the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo. That's up in Canada, just across the border. But then we have other like Comic-Cons and other things and little trade nights, swap meets and stuff like that too that all kind of supplement. It wasn't until I started actually traveling outside where I would go to Mo GameCon, Missouri GameCon, St. Louis. Love that one. A lot of love for that one. It's a smaller show. It's like it takes place in like the last one that took place. It was just inside the basketball court, the gym of the local like community college. But it was great because it's the only thing happening in the Midwest as far as conventions. So you get people traveling from all over, and it was cool because I was like, kid in a candy store, and there was things on the floor too. Different regions have different stuff too. So I know all the Northwest guys and what they have, and you're always going to see a line of Super Nintendo games, and you might see some, Genesis games and stuff like that too. But it was cool to see like stuff just sitting there that wouldn't last 2 seconds in the Northwest. I mean, like all these great Sega Saturn games that were just sitting there, and Game On Expo in Phoenix was the same way too. It's like, man, there's all these great like DS games, 3DS games that everyone else is like, oh, I've seen that before, but it's like it's all new to me. I mean, this is the stuff that's been picked over probably for the last few years in a row. New for me too. So that one's a fun one. It's in Phoenix in the summer. So it's always like, 100 degrees. Last time I was there was 108, Ugh. I think.
Nice.
Not fun. It gave me a chance to go to the East Coast for the first time, too. There was a video game con in New Jersey. At least the last one I went to was in New Jersey. And it was cool because I've never been to New Jersey. So it gave me a chance to try. And I'm a huge regional foodie, too. You don't have my body type by not eating all this random stuff all the time. so it gave me a chance to go to a New Jersey diner. It gave me a chance to go to Carvel's ice cream place. I've never heard of Fudgy the Whale or Cookie Puss and all that, which was, Pat the NES punk was like, oh my god, you've never been to Carvel's, you got to go there. It gave me a chance to, and try whatever the regional food is. Like my first time ever hearing about pork roll, Taylor ham, depending on which north or south of New Jersey, whatever they want to call it, and Too Many Games was great too. Too Many Games was the only convention I've been to that had a wrestling ring because they do cosplay wrestling. Which was like, man, that's like the best of every world. I'm at a video game convention, and there's pro wrestling, and they're all in cosplay. This is great. It's the best thing ever. And it gave me a chance again go to Philly, actually try a legit Philly cheesesteak, not what the locals might call a cheesesteak. That's like get the actual thing and all that too. So it's fun just to travel around, and I love to travel anyway. And just gives me a chance to go out there, and it gives me a chance to hang out with people like even other content creators on the East Coast. It's no secret, it's no surprise that most conventions will book for guests the people who are going to be there anyway. Portland, Seattle, I'm going to be there anyway because I can just drive right in. So right. And it gives me a chance to, and they do the same things in other areas. So when I go to, say the East Coast, when I go to Philadelphia, I'm able to, like the other people who I see all the time. I see Spawn Wave and. There's too many of them off the top of my head. It's like, oh my god, here they are, just right here. Because they would be there anyway. So here's me coming in. It gives me the chance to do that, and it gives me a chance to talk to the people I chat with online all the time, where I don't get a chance to. We don't just hang out. I'm in Yakima, Washington. It's it's not Seattle. Some people think I live in Seattle. I'm like I'm a 2-hour drive away from Seattle with its own little airport. So sometimes I'll get a message from someone saying, "Hey, I happen to be in Seattle this weekend. We should meet up." I was like, I am a long ways away from Seattle, but we do not live in the same house as many people think.
Right on. So, believe it or not, I have not been to a convention. I'm not that outgoing, I guess you could say.
Sure.
I was part of the Uplink virtual convention. I think you were too.
Right. I was. That's right.
Along with Metal Jesus and of many other luminaries. And
Sure.
so if you had to make like a checklist for a noob like me for things to do at a con, what would you put on it?
What's funny? Everyone's different. Some people, I would say, for the most part, people go for the deals. They want to shop. They want to buy things. They want to see it live. But there are some people who go. I have a friend of mine in the Seattle area. He goes specifically for the gaming competitions because there's always like a gaming tournament of some kind. So he goes there and goes for the prizes. I usually like to peek over the shoulder. It's cool seeing in Portland. It's like watching the Tetris players play in that Tetris World Championship, which is amazing because it's just hypnotizing how they play. But it's just absolutely just to walk the floor, talk to the vendors. The vendors always cool to chat with about whatever, depending on what they have. And my thing is always, if you see something you can't live without and it's already a great deal, go ahead and grab it because someone else might. The people who show up super early and get the VIP pass, they're already going to get the best stuff anyway. But if you're just looking for random stuff, which is great, definitely walk the floor a couple of times and then walk the floor in reverse. Because you might see something on the other side of the table that maybe you missed by, walking around, or you're too busy looking at this weird statue over here when on the other side, was this awesome pile of games on the floor that was kind of, tucked underneath the thing. Sometimes box of games on the floor, you'll find the best deals anyway, like $1 each and stuff like that. It's fun to look around, and it's just fun to be there.
Right on.
Just being there in general, and that you're there with like-minded individuals and like you too, where it's just like you may not be the most outgoing person, and we see a lot of those at conventions. One of the great things about video games is video games don't discriminate. You could be any size, any color, any race, any gender. It's just that we're all in the same boat. We're all playing video games.
Right on. That's very well put.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you make some good points. A couple. The one about walking the floor in reverse is something that I should stamp that somewhere permanently on my body. I think people call that a tattoo. I should tattoo that somewhere on my body because I do often. I'll see a table with some good deals, and then I'll walk off thinking about that deal, but not actually looking at the things I'm walking past. And then a couple hours later, I'll walk back through and be like, "Where was that? I was right here a minute ago and didn't even see this." But it was because my mind was like, "Do we have the money to buy that stupid game that you want for your collection?" And I wasn't processing what I was looking at. So multiple times and in the opposite direction. That's very, very good. And also, I wanted to point out, I've only ever been to a couple as well. I went to too many games, and I think that's where I might have seen you walking around. I think you were Robotnik that year. And,
I was. That was me.
And but I've also been to MagFest, which I've talked to Alex about in the past too.
Right.
And you make a good point in that those are. And I've not been to Comic-Con or anything that's renowned for its enormity and all of that, but there's something about the vibes of those things where it does feel like it's very freeing. People are not afraid to be themselves in these places. The cosplay is one indication of that. You'll see people finally able to put on that outfit that they've been working on for months and wear it around people that are actually going to appreciate it. And nerds wearing that nerd shirt. They've been in the IT department for months now, wearing their button-up, their stiff button-up shirts. Now they're going to wear that Pikachu T-shirt out and let it just, they've outgrown it, but it still looks good on them. They're happy to be wearing it. And I think that's what's great about those conventions that I soak that in. I love that energy of people everyone's kind of exhaling finally at these things, that they can be themselves and be entrenched in gaming. So that would be, that's not really an advice to you, Alex, but it's definitely, maybe it's something that might relieve some of your introversion. I don't know if it does or not, but it's definitely an awakening for me.
It's a great place to let your freak flag fly. It's just and you'll run into other people. You can kind of usually see the introverts too, because sometimes I'll see them from a distance, and then they'll kind of ease their way. It reminds me, I used to work at a video store, and we had one of the few video stores in my town that had the porn selection. And to see the people kind of slowly creep through, and they're hovering over the special interest, like National Geographic section, which led into the porn section. And I was like, that person's not that interested in watching in watching the special interest stuff that long. He's working up the courage to walk that hallway to get to where he needs to go, and that's fine. And that's great. And again, I have a son with autism, and I do a lot of volunteer work with autistic people in my town too. So I see a lot of that too, and it's just all about the approach, and they'll come to you when they're ready, and or sometimes sometimes it's best just bring a friend, bring a kind of show up with a friend and bring a friend along, and every once in a while you might end up in another group of other people just like you who maybe they all kind of hovered around someone, and they get more people. They're like, hey, we're going over to this restaurant. You should join us and everything. And then you can you spark new friendships that way. You meet new people that way. I've met a ton of people through. It's funny. I meet them later on Facebook, for instance. Like I'll go to a convention and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, we, I was part of this thing," and then we'll, friend request each other on Facebook or something like that. And then the more we talk through Facebook, without the barrier of actually having to look at someone in their face, then we can become great friends. I was like, man, I wish I knew you then the way I know you now. I mean, kind of thing, because it makes you want to go back to that convention again later on, because that way you can meet up again and go through all the same motions again. Some of my happiest memories recently are at video game conventions. It's great.
Yeah, and I think we asked Dan of Console Wars, or he brought this up too, and it seems like people, you're pretty renowned. Alex, of course, is pretty renowned, but his face isn't as noticeable as, say, yours or Dan's. And I think people, when they see, someone like you who they recognize, they immediately think, oh, if they recognize you, then you're busy at this con. You're a man on a mission doing something else, when I think in reality you're very receptive to talking to people who know who you are. So I think dispelling that whole don't be afraid to say hi or whatever is a big deal, because I think
absolutely.
a lot of people get really hesitant, and they're like, oh man, but you're just a guy that just happened to turn on his camera a couple times and got kind of popular. So it's not as big of a deal as people seem to make it out to be.
I'm just a fan, like everyone else. Like I said, I would be waiting in line with everyone else if I wasn't, at a table already, with some other guests. It's one of the nice things. I mean, there is kind of a green room. Most conventions will have it, and that's where other content creators will take a little break, just to be by themselves. And some people who are much more renowned than I am. It's fun. It's probably not so fun to him, but it's fun for me watching Metal Jesus at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Again, we've been here a long time, and he's from the Northwest too, so he's people already kind of know him, but people who are coming into Portland for the first time will stop him every 3 steps and want to get a picture with him and say hi to him and ask him about his favorite PC game or something like that. And he's happy to do it because he's on the floor. If he didn't want to be part of that, then he would be behind the scenes,
right.
Not doing that. And that's why sometimes they'll go maybe do shopping after hours. After everyone else has already picked through stuff, then maybe he'll go around and other people might hold something for him for later. But you're right. I mean, we're there to be. I mean, that's why we're there. It's why we're there to to be known, or to attend at least the panel. There's always the guaranteed viewing at the panel. And the other hard part too is I love craft beer, I love regional food. Some people know that, so I'll show up at a convention and they'll be like, "Oh, dude, we gotta go grab a drink. I was like, "Man, I'd love to, but that's also gonna be like alcohol poisoning by the time I accept everyone's drinks." It's like, well, just that's when I'm like, we're going over to this place. Come with us. We can hang out there. We can chat more. And that's one of the fun things about conventions for me is I love the conventions. It gives us all makes us all get together and be in the same place all at the same time. And other content creators too. People I looked up to as well. But my funnest memories about conventions are everything that happens after the convention. It's just the hanging out with people afterwards, or going to grab a quick drink or quick bite to eat somewhere in the area anyway.
Yeah, I definitely have. Personally speaking, I have MagFest on my radar. I really want to go to that, and it's just for the arcade I've heard so much about. That's got 80 gazillion games, and I just want to walk around and see. So some of these crazy ass Data East games, or just the weirdest cabinet I can find, just so I could just gawk at it.
MagFest is one I've never been to, only because I've never been for that one. Like with E3, I would have to fly there myself. Other conventions, to be a guest, for the most part, I don't get any cash up front. I don't get first class, airplane seats. It's like, if we'll fly you in coach, we'll put you up in a hotel with maybe some other content creators. But you can hang out. I was like, and that's good enough for me. Like, I'd be there anyway. So MagFest is one I absolutely want to attend. I've heard so many good things about it, and I love video game music too. I love video game cover bands and all that, so it's right up my alley.
Yeah,
it's the type of convention that wouldn't invite me as a guest. Now, I mean, Kelsey's been there, but that's because she's also part of the Video Game History Foundation. But I would like, if that one opened up, that's high on my list of places on conventions I'd love to attend.
Same. So, Travis, should we move on to some listener questions here?
We should. Let's do it.
Uh-oh. Should I get another drink for this? We'll see.
The first one here is from a Travis. I don't know if Travis, did you write this one?
No, I did not. I don't.
You mean there's more than one Travis
There
in
might
the world?
There might be a couple.
Okay.
Too many Travises.
This is kind of a weird, kind of an interesting question. It says, with the looming threat of incomplete or needs multiple patches or digital games disappearing when the servers and networks go dark, will the simpler 32-bit and less retro scene still be moved away from, or will it get a second renaissance? Essentially, what he's asking is, will the hot, quote-unquote, retro systems keep going past GameCube and Dreamcast and embarrass the PS3 and 360 libraries of defunct and inaccessible and lost games, or will people look to the minis and classics for entertainment on the thriftier side?
That's a good question, and man, I wish I had the all knowledge answer. I'm seeing so much more of these retro stuff, even going to modern consoles. And we're seeing that now with Scott Pilgrim. Finally, 10 years later, getting a new update, a new release. I have it still digitally on my PlayStation 3. Probably lucky for me, I had children during my PlayStation 3 era, so I was like, I can't just make it to the store. I'll just download the game here, and and that was during a time where I didn't even consider games wouldn't be available digitally, because I also keep all my old consoles. So if I want to play a PlayStation 3 game, oftentimes I just plug in my PlayStation 3 and play it. But I'm seeing even more and more like just NES style games, or just NES games in general, or Super Nintendo or whatever. Just going to the Switch as another platform for people to check these games out. And there's always going to be the Raspberry Pis, the emulators, and all that too. It's hard to say, and I don't know if it's going to be the demise. It might be the demise of something like a GameStop in the future for sure. But it's only the future knows, especially with these new consoles. It gives you the option of like, do you want the digital version or do you want the disc version? It's hard to say one way or another, especially with PlayStation 5. You can get the digital version, but it's backwards compatible, which means all my PlayStation 4 discs won't work in it. I have my PlayStation 4 digital games probably will, right?
You would hope so. Yeah.
Well, sure, yeah. And something like Xbox, I was looking at the and I was actually thinking about getting the Xbox Series S, only because I have an Xbox One, just the original one. I got it a long time ago in a trade of all things. But most of my games on it are all digital anyway. So you get the Xbox One S, you get Game Pass, and then you don't even need to buy, or you don't need to buy digital games or physical games, because all the games you need are already on Game Pass, and you just play whatever's there. And then when they're not there, they're not there anymore. But I also think back to all those great Wii Virtual Console games. I probably dropped $500 in just like $500, $5 at a time on Virtual Console games for the Wii, just because it was convenient. I have Castlevania 4, I have I have Mario Kart, but hey, the convenience on the Wii, I don't have to plug in my Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64. I'll just buy it again for $5. And then some other games too that they don't exist anymore. I feel bad for those. Not just the fact that people won't have a chance to play it. I also feel bad for the people who made the game.
People,
the creators of the
games. Right.
Oh my God, yeah, because it's like that's money they don't have anymore, unless you can get limited run games for someone to a physical release on it, and that way it just they have something on their shelf. It's it's gotta suck.
Yeah, I'm sure.
On both sides.
Trev, you got any thoughts on this?
Kinda. Like, I don't think that I don't think we can underestimate the power of nostalgia. So I think anyone who grew up with those consoles will find a way to play what they want in some way or another. I think what will where we tend to collect everything because it's kind of easy to do that, and that's our method of discovery for a lot of old stuff. I don't think that they'll be doing that as much. I think people who are interested in that the era when it becomes retro will be very narrow in what they enjoy. I don't think they're going to go outside of the box. They're going to probably enjoy and collect, if they want to, what they're familiar with, and that's basically it. I think the collector mentality is something that us old school folks are just primed for some reason because we were so attached to the physical media, whereas the digital age kids may not have that itch. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think it'll be around, but not to the degree that we enjoy it.
It's hard to say. I mean, I have a 15-year-old who a couple of months ago was like, man, remember playing, and this is nostalgia to her, man, remember playing Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U? Man, I love playing that game. I was like, well, I still have it. We can play it right now.
Oh my god!
And they're like, what? We can? So I mean, so that was nostalgic, and I was like, yeah, it's it's still available. It still works. I got it working and everything. But there's things like recently Konami confirmed that PT would not work on a PlayStation 5, and that was something they actually had to address because they had so much outcry saying, hey, will my copy of PT work on the PlayStation 5? The answer is no, it won't. And then it's like, well, that's so that's if gone. You want to play yours, you have to keep your old one. But it's it's that level where they're going to be that passionate about it.
Yep.
To make an outcry about it.
Yeah, the question makes a good point about the PS3 and Xbox 360 in particular. That's it seems like that's almost like going to be the Bermuda Triangle of inaccessible and lost games, because I think that's when they first went online, isn't it? Or at least when that option first became a reality. Yeah. So that worries me. Between
PSP and the PS3, which one came out first?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
I want to say, I'm trying to think. I had to look it up. But whatever it was, that one had the online element. I think PS3 came out first, and then we had the PSP. But yeah, that's going to be, because there's some of those games too, and I think they also officially announced, and don't quote me on this, but I think they announced on PlayStation 5, because I just had to download an update for my PS4 saying, hey, PS3 games will no longer be available for download on your PS4. You can download them. You can download them on a PS3. If you want to play PS3 games, you can download them on you can download PS3 games on your PS3, but you can't purchase them on the PS4. And that was with one of the new updates, or it was something like that. It was worded very weird. But I have a PS. I love my PSP Go, and I can't access the online store anymore just because it's I can't.
Yeah, there's a fellow in my Discord that loves to hack things. He the only reason he bought a PlayStation Classic was so he could hack it and add all sorts of arcade ROMs to it. I think people will always find a way, one way or another.
Sure.
And there's even hacked Vitas out there that have a ton of functionality that can run tons of stuff. Up through GameCube and Dreamcast and that sort of thing. But as far as like PS3 and 360 and that generation, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be. I hope it's not too the future's not too dark for some of that stuff, but we'll see, I guess.
Let's hope.
We shall. Okay. Our next question here is from Mike, and his is something toy and video game related. Have you seen the Super Mario Lego sets, especially the NES and TV, and is it something that you'd be interested in checking out?
I love the fact that they have these little DIY kits for anything, whether it be Legos, whether it be even the arcade one-up machines that you build. You get the kit, you build it yourself, and look, Ma, I made this thing that actually it works in its functionality. I have 3 children, and so I'm not buying any Legos anytime soon. Because all it takes is, and they have enough time picking up their bigger toys, let alone picking up the smaller toys. So when it comes to Legos, that was a conscious decision my wife and I made a long time ago, whereas it's like, Legos are great, we love them, but for the sake of our own sanity, we're not going to get them Legos. And Legos are so much more intricate than when I was growing up. There was just the blocks.
Oh yeah.
Now they have these little pieces that with curves and one little click on the. It's like, man, that's. I love Legos personally, but that's one of those things. It's like, man, it's we'll get them into something else. I love them. I love looking at them. I love watching the YouTube videos as well of people building them and all that. I love it. I love looking at it from a distance, but nothing I would purchase for myself.
Yeah, I think it was the Game versus Game guy. He got the what was it? I think it was the Ghostbusters headquarters, basically. The building that would open up. It cost an obscene amount of money, but holy crap, It was so freaking cool.
Oh, it's great. I have some friends who are hardcore toy collectors too. I get it. Toy collecting is one of those things I never really got into. I had toys when I was growing up, just like any other kid, I guess. I loved Transformers. I started out with He-Man, then the Transformers, then Mask. But then, I have friends who are my age now who still collect toys, and I love it, and I love every element of it. But it's just, it's a money sink for sure. Getting jumped into that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think those things are pretty cool, especially the NES and TV. But I just, and they're cool to look at. I just can't really justify it because it'll just end up taking up space. I'll put it together and then I'll feel bad about taking it apart, and
Right.
it'll just sit in a spot and never really do anything. And I already have like tons of video games that I already do that with. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's
There
the
you go.
appeal of video games, collecting video games, is that they're interactive collectibles where
that's right.
there's a lot of content there. Mario looks creepy in Lego form. I'm just gonna say
Just a little bit.
He looks
He kind
kind
of
of
does, yeah.
yeah. It's a bit disorienting. There's some stuff I like that I think looks cool, like the Thwomp drop thing is interesting. I'm just on the website now. The Fortress expansion set looks cool. That looks just like it does in the game, which I like. But a lot of this stuff seems kind of, not my thing at all. Like even, I'm trying to put on my kid hat. And
Right.
like, would I like this as a kid? I definitely would have liked the Fortress set and the Thwomp, but everything else, like the Bowser Castle, $100, and Bowser looks all jank and just weird. And I wouldn't have liked that. I prefer the real thing.
Well, I think they're making these for adults too, because you look at like the NES TV set thing. That was like what, $200, $250, whatever
Yeah.
it was. It's like no parent is getting that for their kids just for fun.
Still sold
that's
out too.
Oh well, there you go.
That's a
In
good
the back
point.
of someone's truck.
And you mentioned toy collectors, and I think what would help me on this is if these actually came out in the 80s, then I would be looking for them everywhere I went, trying to put the collection
sure.
back together. And that's the collector and historical preservation side of me. But I guess the capitalization on putting them out now, and I can tell when somebody's trying to play on my nostalgia, and it often works, but I don't like it. So I'm
When
skeptical.
Hallmark's making Christmas ornaments every year now, it's like, come on, they found where the money is.
Oh yeah, they make those Star Trek things that make sounds and stuff like that.
Oh, they have like Nintendo systems that like little
Really?
Nintendo ornaments, yeah, from Hallmark. It's crazy. You can turn it on and everything.
Huh.
Yeah, you have to look them up sometime.
All
They
right,
had
I
a couple of them last year. I think they had like a Donkey Kong cabinet last year, and I think this year they had the NES. But yeah, there's a market for them, and we have money apparently.
Expendable income
Not
is
me.
fun.
So, someone does anyway. Yeah, that generation anyway. For stuff
Right
like
on.
that anyway.
Heck yeah. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps up the episode, John. We want to thank you again for coming on and hanging out with us, man. It was fun.
Oh yeah, anytime. Yeah, hopefully we'll have another convention sometime in the near future. But in the meantime, we'll be hanging out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man. You've been a great guest. You're such a likable guy, so we really appreciate you coming on.
I'm good at assuming. I'm good at being, I guess.
Right on.
All right, that's been another Drunk Friend podcast. As always, you can reach out to us with any questions or comments at drunkfriendpodcast@gmail.com. We might even read it out right here on the show. And if you want to hear more podcasts from our crew, please check out polykill.com and poke around.
That's right. That's exactly right. Polykill.com. Please go there and check out other podcasts like Tales, other podcasts like Polykill, and other podcasts like our friend Michelle. She has a new Pete's Power Hour. Is it Petey?
Oh, Petey's Power Hours. It's
Okay,
Petey.
it's Petey. It's spelled like Pete with an extra E, but it's Petey. And that's a fun one too. But anyway, if email isn't your thing, that's no big deal. But if you'd still want to contribute, just give us a rating and review on a podcast app of your choice. That'll help us out just fine.
Right on, yeah. You can also find us all on social media. I'm on Twitter at Trav Plays Games. You can find Alex, of course, at SNES Drunk, and John Riggs is at John Blue Riggs, Blue the color, of course.
As opposed to blue, like the Nirvana song, BLEW.
Yeah, like you just blew something.
You painted yourself into a corner there, my friend.
I know. The only thing I could think of was something that I wasn't going to say, or something that involved like a DUI test. I'm like, what else do you blow? I don't know.
That's why I went safe there with Nirvana. I think it's the opening track on Bleach. As always, we want to shout out the show's theme composed by our friend Coolor. It's a great track. It's called Electric Star Bounce, and you can find a link to more of his music on the Buzzsprout podcast page. And of course, we want to thank Josh Leslie for our thirst-quenching logo.
That's right. Be sure to catch us all on YouTube, and thanks for listening.
And we hope you have a great rest of your day.